I'm Becky Burbidge, and welcome to my home and my garden. I really learned to love gardening from my mother. Her name was Norma, and she recently passed away. And one of the best gifts she gave me was teaching me how to love my home and my garden. So come into my home, and I'll share more of my tradition with you. It's a beautiful spring day, and I am putting tulips in my Tulipie. It's a dramatic centerpiece. I strip the tulips of most of their leaves, and then I break off a little bit at the end, and I just simply place them in the hole like this. If you have a lot of tulips, I think it looks good to put more than one in each of these little openings. Tulips are such friendly flowers. They're almost fail-proof. They don't last a long time, but if you plant them in the fall, before the frost, and if you wait patiently, you'll have a glorious garden in the spring. There are different varieties of tulips. Some are early blooming, some are mid-season, and I always plant late season because here we inevitably have snow in May, which we just did last week. And the snow really does ruin the tulips and breaks them off. I have a daughter that lives in Dallas where it heats up quickly, and so they plant early flowering bulbs in Texas, and that works out better for them. I have found many sources to buy tulips. I used to source them from my local garden store. Since the big box stores have kind of taken over, like Home Depot, Lowe's, they have pre-packaged bulbs that really aren't the best quality. And so I came upon a company called Colorblends that I ordered the bulbs. I used to get a catalog in the mail, now I just order online. And actually they're much less than if you buy them at a big box store. And I think you have to order a minimum of 100. But 100 bulbs really isn't that much. And so that is the minimum I would plant in a garden, is 100. And each year I plant about 1,200, and I don't have a huge space, but that's just my front garden bed. And I just love the dramatic look of it. And the way I plant the bulbs is, my mother used to just dig one hole and put one bulb in. Well, because I love tulips and because I had so many to plant, I just dig great big holes about this big and probably about 12 inches deep, 10 to 12 inches deep. And then I place the bulbs, as many as will fit, and I put them right next to each other. When you do this and plant them close, it doesn't hurt them, and it gives you just a fabulous display. It's a showstopper. This is one of my very favorites. It's it's called Blushing Lady. And I love the combination of purple with the Blushing Lady with a little bit of pink. This is another favorite. This is Queen of the Night, and it really is the darkest tulip there is, and I think it really adds a beautiful contrast in the garden. I love this tulip. This is Yumi no Murasaki, and I love the beautiful petals and the shape. And if you don't have tulips in your garden, and actually I buy tulips usually for my Tulipie because I like to have my garden full and I don't really want to pick my tulips. And I buy my tulips at Trader Joe's. They're very reasonably priced, and they're beautiful, and they have lots of colors to choose from. The only drawback to tulips is they're not that long lasting. Like, they're not going to last all summer. When they're very susceptible to heat, and I would say they can last about a month. And I always wish they'd last all summer, but actually that really makes them more special because they're rare. It's been a really happy tradition in my life to not only plant, but bring the tulips indoors. And I would really encourage you to try tulips. You could start out small. Order your bulbs in the summer, and then you can say when you want them delivered. And I have mine always delivered on October 15th. And so I always look forward to October 15th, and I watch the weather. And you have to make sure that you plant your tulips before there's a hard freeze. We have hard freezes in Salt Lake. So you've got to be able to dig the ground and put the bulbs in and cover them up. And it's very satisfying. And really, to me, planting bulbs is an act of faith. And it gives me hope because, you know, after a long, cold, hard winter that's bleak, it is here. We have snow and lots of times gray days, and sometimes the snow melts and everything's brown but freezing cold. I can look forward to the spring when my tulips bloom. My tulips usually start blooming about May 1st, and they last until about Memorial Day. And so usually for Memorial Day, I can still clip some and take them to the graves, which is another tradition that I love. And I think it's wonderful that you can have something that you grew yourself to give as a gift to someone that you've loved. I have a lot of people stop and ask me about my garden, and sometimes I'm a little reluctant to tell them what I really do with my tulips because some people think it's wasteful. But at Kuchenhof, in New York, at the Dallas Arboretum, all the big gardens, and people that do have beautiful blooms of tulips, they treat them as an annual. So after they've bloomed, I pull mine out, and I've had neighbors ask for the bulbs. There's a way that you can put them in a dark room, and to me, I still don't think that works well. So I just either give them away or throw them away, and I start fresh the next fall. I'd like to show you what a tulip bulb looks like. I'm sorry I don't have any fresh ones because they don't really come out until the fall. These are from tulips that have just finished flowering. And you can see how the tip's at the top. This is where the sprout comes out. And the wide part is at the bottom. And that's where the roots come down. So these are, you know, this is what tulips look like. They have a little skin on them. And it doesn't matter if the skin comes off. One thing I do is my tulips come in crates, and they're in big bags of 100 with the tag of what they are. And I like mine to all be blended together. And so I get my wheelbarrow, and I take all the sacks, and then I mix them all up in the wheelbarrow. I have one row along my garden path of angeliques, and so I don't mix the angeliques in. But that's how I prepare to plant my tulips. Another thing about the Tulipieres is they were originally made to sprout the bulbs, and so the bulbs were placed. I don't exactly know that it would work that well, I can't imagine, but they were invented to put the bulb inside the pot, and then they'd come out this little spout. But later, and I think it's probably because it didn't work that well, they started putting in single blooms. And you're not limited to a single bloom in each hole. You can put multiples depending on how big the opening is, and that's what I like to do. I like to have it a little more full, just like I like my garden full. I like abundance, so I try to fit 2 in each at least, sometimes 3 depending on how thick the stem is. I think being creative, and there's something so satisfying about it. I look at it and I think I arranged that, and it gives me so much happiness and joy. And when I walk outside and see my garden right now, it's in full bloom, I just think, I did that. And it's such a sense of accomplishment and happiness, and it's just been a really wonderful part of my life. Thanks so much for coming over and listening all about my love of tulips and gardening. And I hope that you can also find joy in this tradition.